Who doesn't want to talk about microservices?
Everybody wants to talk about microservices.
Yeah, well, microservices is really a lot, very, very much in discussion. But the kind of the bottom line about microservices is, well, there's two. One is you do not have to re-architect everything all at once. You can carve off pieces, and we touched on that a little bit when we talked about adding features and functions. But I think equally important is that you have to align it with the business. And sometimes developers can kind of get a little carried away. So it's a microservice. Well, what does it do? Well, it looks for smart quotes and changes them into straight quotes. Well, if you're in an internationalization company, that would be, kind of good to do. But for everyone else, the smart quotes, straight quotes, that's not a microservice. That's a few lines of code. A microservice just needs to be aligned with the business. I mean, this is when Adrian Cockcroft, who was at Sun and then Netflix and then at AWS, he will tell you that microservices, which he kind of made up, was you have to be able to trace why you're building the software to some business problem. Now, it's not one iteration, it's not one sprint, but
No,
you
definitely
can
not.
work through it iteratively. And again, that's something that we do a lot.
Yeah, and definitely not a single sprint. And it is important to understand what you're trying to do and not just why you're trying to do it, but how you're trying to do it. What is it dependent on? And also the security issues. Once you move into a microservices architecture, that is a serious challenge that needs to be taken seriously. How are you going to protect these microservices so that they can only be accessed by other services that need to be accessing them?
Yeah, that dependency exposure problem, by the way, is not trivial, because some of these dependencies you don't know until you've carved out a microservice and you say, you really need to rethink QA coverage. We have one customer who said, I do not allow developers to release microservices into production. Why? Because of all the dependencies. It's like, well, those dependencies are a source of tribal knowledge, but it also shows that they are taking seriously the sequencing of iterative move to more and more and more up-to-date microservices that align with changing business problems. Business problems are rarely black and white, right? And software needs to be black and white in order to work.